Okay, we should be live now. Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, December the 9th, 2025. We're having coffee. I'm Jim, and you are you, and I'm glad that you are. It's kind of Mr. Rogers thing, but you know what? It was cool. Today, we're going to just over coffee. I should have adjusted that before I got started, right? Anyway, over coffee today as we wake up and continue our mornings. Okay, so last night, and after we took care of some errands and such that we needed to do, and I got home and getting settled in, and I got to thinking, well, what are we going to talk about in the morning? Because I was kind of getting caught up on all the headlines and this, that, and the other, and all the rabble rousing that's happening online. As far as the stuff, I don't know what's in your feed, and you don't know what's in mine until I tell you, which I'm fixing to. Um, but again, all the stuff that's out there is so remarkably crazy. I love it in that it was crazy, it's like you were called crazy 30 years ago if you talked about this stuff. Now it's all mainstream. And so everybody's building out these incredible opinions and thoughts. Specifically, I'm speaking to the alien invasion, the disclosure, all of this stuff that's really permeated like the mainstream now, that I find it a little bit fascinating and a little bit dumb. Okay, I'll say it. Now, whatever your thoughts are, I'm not judging your opinion on the matter. As Greg James, the lead guitarist for local group Southern Confession, had made a post yesterday when it comes to thoughts on sharing your opinions. Personally, I try to stay out of the matter. My opinions are just that, they're mine, and, I'm not looking to, like, influence anyone, right? That's really not it. I'm not going into this from a thing, "Let's debate this topic." No, I'm curious what you think, but I'm not really interested in the debate on the majority of stuff I talk about because it's just we're having coffee, man. This is light, you know? But anyway, so shout out to Greg James for that. That was cool. But anyway, just thinking about this whole alien thing and the extraterrestrial possibilities. Yeah, a thought that I have in regards to that is number one, it's always interesting when they throw stuff out there like that at the most opportune times to get you to look over here instead of over there, right? And so I don't know, but I personally I want to plant a seed, and we'll go into it more deeper in the show. But the thing is like me personally, I've kind after thinking about this for way too long, right? I'm talking decades. I've never been one to buy into extraterrestrials as presented, as far as like UFOs and now relabeled as UAPs and all that. I've been of the mind that it's always been military and government tech that we just apparently don't need to know about. Which maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't know. But it's one of those that's where I stand on it because and this is where all this talk has got me thinking more that in presenting the aliens and extraterrestrials and advanced civilizations. See, here's the dealio, Daddy-O. I firmly believe that you and I and all of us wonderful humans who do stupid stuff on this planet, um, we have something far more advanced than any of those um, ideas. And that is, we have an imagination. And with that imagination, I firmly believe it's a window from the soul, not of the soul, but from the soul. And as such, we have the ability to create. And as we have the ability to create, that's a powerful force. And so we're going to kind of dive into that here in a little bit. But anyway, I want to do a little bit of stuff here first this morning that I'm going to see if I can get this thing to cooperate when it comes to like getting back over to the comment section. Um, Okay, first off, I want to say a good morning and get better and get home soon to my buddy Leslie King, who happens to be the mayor of Omaha, who is doing this medical thing. He decided he wanted to, like, go hang out in Springfield for a while. And, buddy, get better soon. Okay. And if you're not aware that Leslie is also the one who aptly named my calendar Flip. Great name. I was so inconsiderate in not giving Flip a name. Leslie made that possible. Buddy, thank you very much. And soon we shall get together for coffee and merriment and sharing tales of excitement or interesting or both from Omaha. We'll do that. Anyway, let's see here if I can get this thing to cooperate. There it is. All right, let me pin me up to the top so I can find it. And it says it's been pinned. So let me refresh that. And there I am. Okay, so now in the comment thing that we're doing. Okay, I'm going to do a little flip-flopping with you here. I want this post right here. Here, I'll show you what post I'm talking about. Oh, wait. Let me come back over. It moved. It wasn't supposed to move, but it moved. Okay, anyway, first thing that I want to bring to your awareness is as I can is this right here. This is an amazing, wonderful, incredibly heartfelt um, tribute to two of I know most certainly some of my most favorite people that have ever graced the city limits and done things. Well, even though one was just outside the city limits, anyway. But Liz Witt and Mary Jean Krieger. Now they're both shook loose the mortal coil at this point, but in honor of them and their memory and their legacy and all the things they have done for Harrison, Arkansas in the most giving ways. My good friends Rick and Shirley Schoenberger of Backstreet Trader have now donated this classic Goblin, the Goblin Spirit golf cart thingy, right? It's really cool. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that actually the art that you see here of the Goblin head, that one was done. I think that was Ruben. I think it was Ruben Drury who originally designed that one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ruben, but I'm pretty sure that one was yours. So anyway, if I'm wrong, fix it. But anyway, from now through Friday, there's a live auction happening with it where you have to go to that original post right here. So I'm gonna put in the comments. Where are you? And paste and there. Okay, so that's there now. So anyway, but with this though, all the proceeds, 100% are going to CCM, Children's Charity Ministry, which has been and was a favorite organization that Liz and Mary Jean supported so incredibly well. And so that's just such a wonderful thing. So the bidding on that goes through Friday, and all of those things will be settled up at CCM. So reach out to everybody over there. If you got questions, you can ask Rick or Shirley Schoenberger with Backstreet Trader. And yeah, so I really want the word out on that because I'd love to see that thing go for a remarkable amount of money because it goes for a good cause. And again, it helps us pay respects and honor both Liz and Mary Jean. And again, I got to tell you, one of the things that was tough in getting back online, and again, with a focus here in the Harrison area, one of I mean, Liz was probably the one of the greatest supporters I've ever had of doing this stuff for years and years and years. And to not have her participating in the comments and the shares and all that stuff, it was tough. And it's still a hard adjustment not seeing her playing along with this stuff. So anyway, again, it's a great cause. It's a really cool item. If you are a Harrison Goblins fan, you just want to do something great for the community, there's an opportunity for you that is really, really neat. And you're grabbing a piece of Harrison Goblin history. And that's awesome. That's all I can say. So, anywho, so we've touched base on that. And what else do we have here? That's the main things, I guess, that I was really going for, to where I wanted to make sure I put emphasis on the front of the show when you folks are here the longest, because I'm again, I don't chase numbers. I got over that. Like that dopamine addiction that can get you in trouble and addicted to social media. I'm over that, man. I'm hoping 1,000,001 people tune into the broadcast and take something away from it, enjoy their coffee first thing in the morning or whenever they happen to catch it later on. That's great. But at the same time, I ain't living for it. I'm sharing the message, and those who need to hear it will, and that's awesome. So I'm cool with that. But I am not going to let myself get ate up with it. Let's see. The red eyes, or has it been nerfed, Damien? I'm not 100% sure. You'd have to look over on the picture. But with that said, okay, where are we now? I want to get myself where I'm not confusing myself by seeing what I'm seeing. So anyway, but yeah, it's going to be a beautiful Tuesday again, December the 9th. It's a frost, well, excuse me, it's a toasty 38 degrees out there. Now you would not know that because of all the frost out there. Of course, because my pal my bestest buddy in the world, Jack the Wonder Dog, he had to. Well, you can't see Jack because I'm in the way. Let me move that back over. Why is this thing being so particular? Anyway, Jack the Wonder Dog there. He, Mama got him a new sweater last night, and he was so hell bent on making sure that his pal next door could see him in it. You have no idea how much those two genuinely love one another. So anyway, but Jack the Wonder Dog wanted to show off his sweater right before broadcast time, and I had to coax him into coming in and yeah, let us get on with the show. Jack doesn't like coffee, and so he has no real respect for the coffee or the broadcast clock, and that's okay. He's Jack. He can get away with a lot. Anyway, but let's see what else are we doing here. As the main thing, I want to go into this conversation talking about the whole alien, extraterrestrial, UFO, UAP thing because why? Um, Again, one of the things about it that's like kind of a thing to me is the way my thought processes went on it because over the decades, and now I've explored this stuff a lot, probably in some ways a very unhealthy manner, but not really. I was really going into it really as a journalist and not I guess maybe a little investigative on things because frankly, like when you look at all the stuff that's been disclosed now, and like in the past year and a half, my lord, the congressional hearings, all the testimonies and all the stuff from folks, and I got to be honest with you, I've never been impressed with it because even in those official settings, we still don't get anything. I mean, for these whistleblowers, they don't bring anything to the table. I'm not saying that they're not telling the truth. That's not what I'm saying. I don't know. I could not know. I'm not in their head. I can't read their minds. I don't know what their motivation is. I think in a lot of those instances, those folks seem to be pretty sincere. That doesn't mean it's true, but they are sincere. So, from their perspective or their information, and they're connecting dots, though, don't forget, because they haven't, until they bring you something, it's going to be speculation, right? It's it is what it is in that. So, but I'm curious what everybody thinks about that. And hey, there's my buddy Rick, and big old heart there, and a big old heart for Damien for being a hospitable guest inside of this broadcast realm. So anyway, as we do all of this stuff and we look at all this stuff, I think it does take away and kind of that narrative kind of screws with people's heads because if you've got it in your head that there is a species, a society, or something that's more advanced than humans, um, why? Why should we buy into that narrative? Because again, everything that you and I see came from our creations. Now they're like the ancient aliens and the reverse back engineered technology. Okay. Well, how about when you look at the advancements in technology that have been done in your face with humans that you yourself may have partaken in, as far as like something you may have done that came from you, didn't come from back engineering something, but you may have back engineered something. I know as we learn new things, we are back engineering, right? Somebody else did it first, and then we learn how they did it from how they did it, right? So there's that. It's just so funny to me watching what has become mainstream conversation, but at what expense? Because here's another thing that nobody brings up in those thoughts and discussions. You know, whatever happened to the realization and reality that people write fiction, make stuff up solely for the purpose of entertainment? I'm okay with that. But we seem to forget that. So, and again, inside of this wonderful tinfoil hat circle that I've enjoyed rolling around with for dang near all my life, really. But it's just funny to me to see people buy into that, but don't do that until someone gives you something that's hardcore proof. Now, me personally, I've seen things in the sky, right, that are out of place, a weird time, not part of a flight pattern or a flight log, you know. I've tracked those things down. And but again, it's nothing that really made me go, ooh, it's ET coming to get the dime back from the phone call he made to go home all those years ago. Because it's like again, it's funny to me because as I have witnessed things myself firsthand, I cannot totally describe them. And on the whole, there's only one instance. that I'm like, okay, I have not been able to just write it off. First, though, let me say again, my mindset's always been if I look up in the sky and I see like a weird configuration of lights doing stuff, which I have seen, and it was mainly when I was in Little Rock. And at that one particular time, it was one of those in between gigs when I was in radio, to where it's like, all right, that dried up. We got to find something else to do. And I was actually working at a place called Rank Video. I'm not sure if you're familiar what Rank Video is. Rank Video was I don't even know if they're still there, but over in North Little Rock, yeah, Rank Video was a VHS duplication farm, right? They handled everything. I mean, it's like they duplicate every. If you had a VHS back in those days, most likely it was produced out of Rank Video's factory there in North Little Rock, which is a fascinating thing to learn as far as like how it works. You got like thousands upon thousands of these VHS decks that were duplicating tapes simultaneously, and then they normally do it at about two up, sometimes three or four up speed, just depending on what it was. And then it was the human's job, my job, to go in, load the tapes, unload the tapes once they dropped, right? Anyway, but one early morn, as I was carpooling with the friends actually, yeah, and we were carpooling in, and we looked up, and there were like five or six little lights just in the sky, looked like could be little stars. But then they started kind of moving and converging, and then pulling back and doing things that stars don't do. That was interesting. However, we're just down the road from Little Rock Air Force Base in Jacksonville, and we always, there was stuff. And plus, if you've got an alien spacecraft and alien technology, I mean, why would they need the same type of lights that we have? They're supposed to be advanced, right? Couldn't they do something different? I don't know. But anyway, especially if they didn't want to be seen. But if they got lights, like all of our stuff has lights, and they weren't flashing or anything, but they were there. Back to the one that I did see, that to this day, I have not been able to track down an explanation. The best I can do as far as in describing it, this was probably about, oh, I'm guessing probably about 1987. 1987, it was way in the early morning hours, probably around 3:30-ish, something like that. Anyway, my dad, when he would go to work early, he worked at Coca-Cola down there, and I would have to my dog at the time, he was notorious for wanting to go see the girls when he got into that season. And anyway, I had to go out, and I was holding my dog as we opened the gates so Dad could pull out and all that. Well, anyway, I'm outside with the dog, truck's still warming up, gates open. I'm sitting there, and I look up, something caught my attention, and there was like this oval, right? You know what an oval is, right? Nothing fancy, just an oval. However, around the oval was the full like prism of lights, right? All the different colors, and they were spinning like this in an oval pattern and just kind of just cruising across the sky, almost at like the speed of like if you've ever seen, like I wouldn't say a hot air balloon, but more like a blimp. Have you seen how a blimp goes across? Well, it was doing that, kind of that, and it almost looked like the bottom, that oval shape, sort of like the bottom of a blimp. But to the best of my knowledge, I've never seen blimps in Arkansas in my life ever. But it kind of looked like that. I couldn't see anything other than the lights. Again, this is about 3:30 in the morning, and I've never been able to track down what that could have been. But I did see it, and I know it's a fact because I witnessed with my own eyeball, saw it. Okay, but do I think it was alien technology? I don't know, because I just don't know. But anyway, that's the only thing I've ever seen that I'm like, okay, now that one's different. Everything else has just been little lights, different formations of stuff doing things. But again, I'll chalk that up as military. That's just my opinion on it, right? So there's that. But again, thinking about when it comes to narratives that can be put out that people will accept and just say, yeah, that's it. Like the whole ancient alien thing. It's like, it's interesting. It's great conversation because it gets you thinking about stuff like how did they do things 100, 200, 500,000 years ago that we ourselves appear to not be able to recreate using the technology of their time today. I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts on that as far as like the ability to use something. Okay, for instance, an axe. Think about an axe. Now, say 100 years ago, an axe was a remarkably versatile tool for people because they were familiar with that tool. They could do all kinds of stuff, not just splitting logs and everything, but they could use it to like shape out things for like a log cabin. totally going off the rails with that particular analogy. But anyway, they were very proficient with that axe and could do some amazing things that if you tried it or I tried it, we're going to wind up with most likely just tons of blisters on our hands, whining and crying about having to use an axe. And we probably don't even know how to sharpen it properly, right? Correct. And so when it comes to the resources at hand, perhaps those people 2,000 years ago who were doing a thing that we're mesmerized by now because we can't use that tool in the same manner in which they did, maybe that has something to do with it, you know? Sort of like if you're familiar with the conspiracy of Tartaria, the civilization that existed before what we are doing now, but somehow or another has been completely wiped out from history, even though there are nuggets of proof that there was a Tartarian civilization all throughout the world. Okay. The Tartarian Empire. Now, with that though, is like the biggest hook on that is that like a lot of the beautiful ornate structures of the modernish era, okay, like the cathedrals and the buildings, they're just ornate and beautiful. And like we look at them now when we're surrounded by these boring boxes that everybody just throws up that has like no style whatsoever other than box. Man, that's a good looking box. But we look at that and then like we're kind of like, whoa, how did they do that in such a short amount? Number one, we don't know really how long it took to build something. I guess if there's records, you could see things. But the thing is, again, they were using to absolute precision the tools and technology of their times, right? So, and if you've ever watched a master craftsman, like a bricklayer, and you watch a bricklayer building a wall, that bad boy is, I mean, they're humping, man. They're getting it. They can get a wall up fast, just like watching somebody build a house. I mean, when somebody knows what they're doing, they can totally get after it and do it in an amazing amount of time that you or I, if we're not home builders, block layers, and things like that, we would take us a month what takes them 6 hours, right? Because they know what they're doing. So I just propose that as a thought. And again, I find it fascinating that in public discourse now, people are willing to accept narratives because it's repeated so many times that it must be true. And if it's been part of the conversation for a longer period of time, then it must definitely be true. Here, I'll touch on one that I find very funny. That, and again, it's in the headlines now. Well, in certain circles, it's not really that big, I guess. But in certain circles, like when it comes to like the Conjuring House, and I forgot where it's at. But anyway, it's up in the Northeast. If you're following it, you know where it's at. But the Conjuring House, which is like one of the locations that has been made famous by the Conjuring universe of movies, like The Nun and Annabelle, which are all based on the real investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Okay. Now, Ed and Lorraine Warren in the paranormal community, I remember as a kid watching In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. And it was a great show. And I loved those tales. And then they would show up on other of those type of shows back in the day. Like if you remember this one, remember That's Incredible? It was on ABC way back in the early 80s. And they would have all the cool stories. Like before there was an Unsolved Mysteries, you would see segments like that on That's Incredible. And they would show neat stuff that wasn't, that was you would see the levitating ball, and you then of course stories like the Warrens with Annabelle, which I remember even as a kid, I was like, wow, that's kind of spooky. But then when I found out that the Annabelle doll in question was a Raggedy Ann doll, I could not help, even as a small kid who enjoyed this stuff, to go, man, that's dumb. Who's scared of Raggedy Ann? What? And then as the years went on, and that continued to go and go and go, um, and just really became baked in as a true story, even though the facts of the matter have been completely distorted. Completely, completely. The original story in and of itself is so lame. It's just dumb. But people grabbed onto the narrative and couldn't. And at that point, at some point, some urban legend or myth gets baked in so hard it becomes true, right? It has to be true. It's a fact. But is it though? I don't know. But I personally like to kind of think that maybe it's just the human imagination enjoying a good story and having kind of a ripple effect, if you will. But I don't know. I think about that stuff because I'm weird and I own that. Um, but we're going to play a thought game here in a minute. But I tell you what, this is my third cup of coffee. Can you tell? Probably not. I'm just as goofy with 1, 3, or 30. It just all boils down to the number of times I got to go pee, right? Right. So, anyway, when I think about all this and the narratives of things, and there we go. So, thank you for that update there, Derek. Appreciate it. I'm doing some liking and stuff because I want to make sure that the chat stays active as we go. Because we'll talk about it later. But I'm working on figuring out the best way I want to go about doing this live stream. Because at the moment, I'm live streaming out to Facebook and YouTube. Um, and honestly, at this point, and with certain things that I know I could plug in to like follow the chats from the different ones, I think I'm just going to probably wind up focusing for this live thing on Facebook, believe it or not, for this morning coffee thing, because this is really focusing around folks here in my local area in the 72601 and the 65616, and not necessarily for that broader distribution, even though YouTube makes it easier because it's easier to have that on your television. So I'm weighing all the pros and cons of it, but I don't want to do a live thing and not be able to interact properly with the chat. But that's my problem, right? But take some notes because you might learn something in this process. And as I figure things out, I show you. I like doing that. But again, thinking about all of this narrative acceptance, and it all gets baked in, and it's like folklore of all the yarn before when people still called it folklore instead of urban legends. It's funny because again, there's so many great stories that have evolved over time that people started, well, they're just accepted as real, and that's okay. That's the thing. Is I don't think for a second that I don't appreciate that power of story and how it can have an underlying purpose of things. Now, I will tell you one that has me perplexed to this day, and one day, I'm think I'm going to try to revisit this. Okay, now again, most of you know at this point I was born and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas. And in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I was raised, if you're going down what is now 530, I-530 heading towards Pine Bluff, right? Once you get past 30 and it turns into 530, first exit is Dixon Road, exit number 3. Next exit is 145th Street, which I think is exit number 7. And then the next one is exit 9, Bingham Road. And that's where I grew up, right? Well, hop down one more exit, exit 10 takes you to Sheridan. And then the next one is the one that's more infamous and known. And that would be exit 12 for Woodson and Woodson Lateral. Now, if you're an Arkansan, you're probably familiar with the story or stories, plural, of Woodson Lateral Road. That's where we have our own vanishing hitchhiker. That's one of the ones there. I grew up with that story, right? The vanishing hitchhiker of Woodson Lateral Road. So, where it's like you see her and you pick her up, and she's like, "Please just take me home." But she looks distraught. Sometimes she's wet, depending on the stories. Maybe she'll leave a sweater on your seat after you go to drop her off. All that, all the trope, right? All of it's there. And but it's funny because growing up out there and being very familiar with the story from like as long as I can remember being told a story about something with Woodson Lateral, it's funny because there are certain things in watching how stories progress inside of the urban legend aspect of things. Here, I'll it's all part of it. This makes sense. It's 8:28. I still got time before I overdo it, go past 9 o'clock. We're not going to do that. So, okay, so what's in Lateral Road? The Vanishing Hitchhiker story. But then there's also a corresponding one that involves like this light that will pop up along the tree lines and then follow your car. And sometimes it's been known to cause accidents. Okay. Well, now that one I can't really say much about. I've had friends who said that it happened to them and they saw it. But most of those friends I knew were kind of full of crap anyway, and I took it all with a grain of salt. But now here's where it gets interesting because again, if since the story revolves around Woodson Lateral Road, let me paint the picture here. All right, you're on I-530, you take the Woodson exit. Now to get to Woodson Lateral, you go to the right and up a ways, and then it's like the first turn on your right. That's Woodson Lateral Road. Okay. I personally didn't realize that because why? going that way, all right, you take the exit and then you hook a left, you go over the bridge, over the interstate, and then you keep going. And there used to be one of those old iron bridges, you know, and that's what I always thought was what they were talking about. But apparently, that's somewhere in the communication, it's squirrely. Okay. Now, when you did go down there and the old bridge was still there, it was spooky because you got a few curves and the way Woodson Ladder, well, the way I'm just gonna keep calling it Woodson Highway. Anyway, when you're going down that road there that takes you into Woodson, it's like it's one of those cool ones because like all the trees like kind of overarch the road, so it's just spooky regardless. And they're also evergreen, so they're like evergreen trees, so it always looks the same. There's a couple, you know, regular. Well, I say regular trees, other trees that like do the color change and leaves fall off and all that. But anyway, once you go through a few curves and this, that, and the other, you get to the bridge and then you go past. The bridge is long gone now, like most things, and they've got a new one in. That's so boring. Again, where are the Tartarian craftsmen to make things beautiful again? But anyway, but then right over in there is where my understanding was that you would see the vanishing hitchhiker. Another thing that was interesting, and I didn't learn this till way later in life. I guess it was probably around 2002 ish, maybe. That may have been before then. No, it was before then. No, wait. Sorry, accessing memory files. But looking back, okay, all right, right there in that same spot, when you got past the old iron bridge, and then you would have over here on this side to your right, there was like a swampy pond thing. There was like right there on a curve. Allegedly, that's where like one of the cars went off and the girl died or whatever. But then on the left, just a little bit further up, there is, and again, I don't know how I missed this when I was a kid, but just right past there on the left, kind of tucked away just a little, you can see the sign pretty well from the road, but it was marked as an Indian and Negro slave cemetery. Right now, how I missed that, I don't know. A buddy of mine actually lived just maybe a quarter mile up from that, you know, but I never saw it then. But anyway, on that side there and with that, now here's where it gets interesting, and this is true, 100%. You don't have to believe me, but I assure you, I'm telling you 100% exactly what happened, as I observed it, and recorded it. But unfortunately, yeah, I don't have that footage anymore. That footage is long gone. Well, about what I'm fixing to tell you. Anyway, so let's go back to 2002. 2002, me and my buddy Jesse, I was working on what I wanted. Well, okay, I wanted to do like a ghosty hunting show before that was a thing, right? I was like, I was like kind of plugged into that whole what's the word I'm looking for? Connected consciousness of an idea. Like everybody had the same idea at the same time, but they were totally not connected. But we were all thinking along that line. Anyway, I was wanting to do a show like that because I'd done radio stuff, but I hadn't done television stuff. And again, I didn't really want to do television, but it seemed kind of whatever. Maybe do a documentary is what I was thinking at the time. And I just got a camera. Okay, my first video camera. And it was a small little handheld jobby, had a little mini DV tape in it. And I wanted to test it out. And Jesse and I, we ran over there to get some shots of that cemetery. And so we go and we're walking around, and I'm not one, I don't like crossing fences and things like that. Not my thing, man. It's like I don't encourage anyone to do that. If you're one of these people who do want to go walk around in the dark and scream at the shadows, knock yourself out, but don't violate somebody's personal property, okay? You deserve to get locked up if you do. It's on you. But anyways, I never cared to do that. So we were just kind of walking right there along the fence line because it was just like a barbed wire fence. But you could see the sign very well, but there couldn't really see any kind of like grave markers, you know, no tombstones. Just there really wasn't that you could see from there. Maybe on the other side of the fence, if you get a little closer, you might be able to. But again, I wasn't going to trespass. Wasn't going to happen. Jesse was all about it. I'm like, no, dude, we don't need that in our lives. So anyway, but we're filming the stuff, and I'm filming him, and we're just kind of checking it out. Nothing really eventful going on. But now there was a story from my neighbor directly across the street that her mother said that she saw the girl, and as such, had a wreck, right? Right there in that area. But I do know the wreck happened, and I do know that that was the area that all these stories came from. But anyway, it was a while later. It was like a couple months, I guess, where I went in. And again, this is in the early days of learning how to do the video editing on a computer. This was all new to me. I do audio editing, but in a squad about video. So anyway, I sat down with the footage finally, and I got it in the machine, and I put it all in there. And again, nothing else was ever on that tape. So as I'm going through and I'm scrubbing through the video and I'm checking it all out, and then something came through on the audio, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And I went and I played back, and I'm like, "Dude!" And so at that point, I actually went across the street, same neighbor's house, but it was her brother. He was home, and I said, it was late. He was up. But I said, "You got to hear this." So I got him to come over. I didn't say what I heard. Okay, so the pareidolia effect, which I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even learn what that word was until Caitlin taught me. But pareidolia is where your brain makes sense out of something that doesn't make sense. Well, anyway, I slapped the headphones on him and I said, "Here, what do you hear?" And I played the clip. And this is a guy who's a total skeptic on everything. And his eyes kind of like opened up and went, "What is that?" And it was a voice. It was a female voice right before I shut the camera off. And it said, "Help." I just got goosebumps again thinking back on that because that was real. That happened. That whole everything. I wish I still had that clip, but as time has went on, all these decades later, I lost the damn clip. That's why I'm so uber super paranoid whenever I do things now to make sure I back things up 120%. But anyway, but that really happened. But now here's the thing. For all the other stuff that's been reported out there on Woodson Lateral that's gotten baked into the urban legends and myths of the area, I've watched it expand. I've also watched it form. Now, here's the thing. In that, one of the things I saw, a buddy of mine who lived over there, his family had horses and goats. At one point, they had some raccoons. Those are mean little critters. Then also some peacocks. That was interesting. But they had a lot of weird animals. They weren't like into the breeding of them or such. They just had them. And at one point, a story started circulating, and still probably persists to this day, that there are Satanists on Whitson Lateral, and that's what's causing all this phenomenon, right? But I remember when that cropped up as and became part of the story. But the Satanists on Whitson Lateral were performing these rituals, right? And of course, once something like that starts to permeate, then people start doing stupid stuff. Like someone actually went out and started like spray painting like a pentagram on the road, right? And it was just fueling the whole damn thing because I knew it wasn't true. How did I know it wasn't true? Because actually, when the story started, was when there was like, I want to say it was like dysentery or something broke out with my buddy's friend, my buddy's goats that they had, right? So the hard truth of the matter is that when that happens, they had to slaughter the goats and then they had to burn the bodies. Well, apparently somebody somewhere along the way was driving by at just the right time and saw it. I don't know how they put it all together into all this, but it was that's what they saw. And so no, it wasn't satanic worship. It was having to stop the spread of whatever the hell that was. Okay. But again, but I watched that in real time because I was probably about 13 or 14 when that part of the story got involved because it wasn't there before. Now, the Vanishing Hitchhiker, yes, that had been there since I'd ever heard a story when I was little. And then to actually capture what is now commonly known as EVP, electronic voice phenomenon. And I know for a fact, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the only two people who were there that day when I was rolling tape for the very first time on that camera was myself and Jesse. And neither one of us sound like a woman. And Jesse would never whisper. So it was, "Help me." And it was spooky and it was creepy. And it just fueled more of the digging into things. But again, it shows how a narrative can be set and built upon, and that people can accept it. And I see that with the alien stuff. But again, what does that actually show me? My perspective on it. And again, I cover it in the book a little bit. But it actually is part of it. So today's reading from my incredible book, Toys or Totems, that you should totally pick up for a gift, for yourself, for a fan on those hot summer days. Dig this. Now, this is coming in chapter 10. So the lead in quote on page 52 is, "Inventing a toy is like a never ending treasure hunt. You're always searching for that elusive gem that will captivate the world." And that was stated by Richard Levy. He was the inventor of Furby. Remember Furby? So, and well, Furby's still there. Nothing goes away now. But I pull up that quote in this chapter for this point when it comes to how narratives get built and accepted as fact when they're not necessarily fact. Now, mind you, the point in that quote and stating that is it shows how the human imagination is active and on fire all the time. And you can do amazing things with it, even creating something weird and creepy like Furby, which in and of itself got so many incredible urban legends around it that it was spying on you and all this other stuff, right? Or it was possessed. I even saw those stories if you remember those. But the main thing is the human imagination created this thing because it was on the hunt to create more things, right? And so it did. We do it. We create stuff. And then it has a ripple effect. Now, chapter 10's reading from page 53, the ripple map. Every great idea begins as a spark, a whisper, a sketch on scrap paper, a concept jotted in the margins of a school notebook, a book, a passing thought that says, wouldn't it be cool if? And if it's honored, if it's followed, fed, and fought for, it ripples. Example, and I love this example, and so much I had to put in the book. Take Superman, right? Two kids in Cleveland, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, they had a vision, a hero, a symbol of hope wrapped in red, blue, and yellow, and they created him not because they had a market plan, but because they needed him, right? To continue on. And then you look what happened. When you see what happened with Superman from that initial comic book idea, or newspaper strip, excuse me, newspaper strip. And then when you see all of that, well, actually, I guess it was Action Comics #1. Anyway, whatever. Point being, from 1938, with the release of Superman, what that has become. Who on the planet doesn't know who Superman is? A completely fictional character created by two kids in Cleveland. Well, not really kids, but you know what I'm saying. In Cleveland, that has spawned a ginormous amount of industry, an industry revolution in film and animation and books. And it's amazing. And you think of all the lives touched by those two kids with an imagination. That's more powerful than alien technology any day of the week. Prove me wrong. Good luck. And then even when things come along that I personally don't like the Zack Snyder DC films, I don't like them. And I want to apologize for that. Like Man of Steel, I hate that movie. I do. I don't like it at all. The new Superman movie, I enjoyed watching in the theater. It was cool. It was fun in the theater, but I can't watch it again because the story was stupid. But I enjoyed it in the theater. It was cool seeing Superman with his trunks back on, having a good time, and getting beat up way too much for Superman. I'm sorry. I know they're, well, we had to like humanize him. No, you don't. He's Superman. Otherwise, he's not Superman. Okay? Nah. But at least they didn't, kill off his parents in a stupid way like they did in Man of Steel, in a selfish way at that. But that's a whole other thing that I've ranted about enough. But the point being is when you think about human imagination, it's truly the most powerful thing in the world. Everything you have, this computer, this webcam, these reading glasses, this pen, the paper that I'm making my notes on, that all came because someone had an idea and they fueled it with their imagination to put the power behind it to make it work. And what do? You accept the fact that you've got more power in you and ability in you to do so many things, even if tinfoil hat time, right? Society's not structured for that. I'm not saying that they are holding you down, but maybe they are. It's sort of like you can go so far, but then you kind of you stop if you're buying into what you're told is the way in which you have to do things. Like for example, the old trope of the 20th century, which obviously has been blown out of the water in the 21st century, of a 40-hour work week and you work for 40 years and then you retire, right? Well, that doesn't work anymore. And it hasn't worked for a long time. The majority of my life, I know this firsthand. Like when it came to broadcasting as a career, I knew going into broadcasting that I was never going to retire from a station. That was never part of the gig. And I knew that because the rule of thumb and axiom of the times was if you were at a station for more than 2 years, you were washed up. And there was no way I was going to be washed up. No, man, not me. I had no desire to sit still in just one place like that, which is a testament to what's happened in life as I progressed to where when I first came to Harrison back in 1999, when I was working for Carmike Cinemas, and then I left in 2001, back into the radio game, and then in 2006 wound up coming back. And then pretty well 2 years I went to Branson for 2006, 2008, but then 2008 I've been here ever since. So as I will call it, fate would have it, because it got me Alicia, which in turn led to Caitlin, and here we are with a homestead, and we're happy and not going anywhere. I've done my own moaning and complaining about things over the years. Anybody who knows me has listened to me whine about it. But guess what? At this point, I realized, no, man, this is home. This is home now. It truly is. Home is where the heart is, and my heart's here. It really is. Doesn't mean I necessarily agree or like every single thing, but I'd be hard pressed, and I press myself. I'd be hard pressed to find somewhere else better to be, to raise a family, to enjoy life. In fairness, I've had to. One of the things is it gave me the opportunity to really push myself to create my own stuff, because the things that I've been compelled to do in life as a storyteller and creator, be it in rather a broadcast thing or any of the various multimedia stuffs that I do, they came out of necessity because I didn't want to leave here, but I didn't want to not do what I do and that I'm compelled to do. So I just made it happen here. Even though people say you can't, yes, you can. I don't care where you are. If you've got that compulsion inside of you, you can absolutely positively pursue it. And now that may lead you to go in other places. Perfect storm example there is like I grew up in Little Rock. I was very fortunate in the state of Arkansas to be born and raised in Little Rock for a career in radio, because that, well, it still is pretty much the biggest market for radio, right? But then, well, then nobody cares about it now. But I was fortunate because my entry point was at the biggest point. I mean, that was again, I didn't choose it. There were plenty of people who would dying to get into the Little Rock market. Well, I happened to be there, so it was easier for me to get in because I was there, proximity, right? So, but to grow, I had to leave because again, everybody else had anchored in, and you were not going to dethrone anyone. That wasn't going to happen. Even to this day, it's like if somebody's anchored in a place, you're not going to knock them out of that spot. I mean, the odds, and you're going to do something exponentially awesome to get that to happen. I mean, again, I'm here to create, not to compete. So I'm not looking to knock anybody off of whatever they're doing. That's not my problem. If somebody else wants to knock them off and offer me some money, well, that's how the career worked back then. And so anyway, so I went up and down the dial, did the whole WKRP thing, town to town, up and down the dial. And I learned and I grew and I was able to do things in different roles that I never would have been able to do had I stayed in Little Rock, because it capped out. So in all of that, what I'm saying to you is that if you're wherever you are, whether you're in Harrison or you're in Branson or you're in Green Forest or Berryville or Jasper or Mountain Home, Yellville, Flippin, um, Eureka, wherever you happen to be, and you feel that you're throttled by your location to excel in what you're wanting to do, you have to go over there to do it. In some instances, that's true. Stephen Pressfield, which I absolutely highly recommend his book, The War of Art. So impactful and powerful. It definitely was for me. I highly recommend Stephen Pressfield's War of Art. But he also wrote another book called, Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be. And it's a great food for thought. It's like if you're going to really go for something, then if you have to go, go. Throw caution to the wind, load up the duffel bag, get in the car, and drive. Now, I did that early on. However, he also notes in there that if you can't go, you can't, it's just not, the limitations are genuine at a time, but you could work towards. But in that meantime, you can frame your brain to where you really do want to be. Say if you live in Harrison, Arkansas, but you got this compulsion that you really want to do something and set up shop in New Orleans, Louisiana, right? It's like something about that culture and the everything is where you just feel you really want to be, and that's like where your creative spark is coming from. Say you're writing a novel that's based in New Orleans. Well, you could go and really absorb the vibe there. Well, and if you can't physically do it, put your head there. Put your head there. Maybe light an incense candle or something that captures that feeling. Tap all the senses, but get your headspace in there. And when it comes to everything that I've done in the past 17 years that I've been in Harrison, it's like as I've had, again, my original desire in ever picking up a camera was to do film, is really what I wanted to do. That seed got planted in me probably about 97. And so I just started self teaching myself all this stuff over all these years. But as time has went on, needs developed and I started learning more. And I just love learning at this point. I guess I always have, except in school, right? But outside of that controlled environment, I love to learn. I love to teach what I learned to other folks who want to also learn because I understand the struggle of trying to learn when you don't appear to have resources around you. But I highly encourage you to not give up because of where you sit, especially now. The technology that we have all around us is unbelievable. It's awe inspiring. It's You're not limited by anything because I'd say some people say you're not only limited by your imagination. Your imagination is not limited if you open up to it. Again, like, and coming back into like getting ready for today's show and what I was going to talk about and the wonderful merriment that is my brain. And I got thinking about this whole alien narrative thing and extraterrestrials and UAPs and UFOs and all that. And I was like, what's a good representation for my little picture with Flip? Thank you again, Leslie. But my picture with Flip, and then I thought about the noisy cricket. If we have an alien invasion coming, you want to be ready, just like the Men in Black with the noisy cricket. It's small, but it packs quite the punch, and that's what's funny with the little knock knock video I had it generate this morning. Let's come back over to it. Cute. I absolutely positively love this. Hey, play it. Hey, dude, loser. There it is. Well, gosh, so. We put it back in frame. There we go. There we go. I love this. This is so much fun. And again, that's the AI powered stuff that allows you to do an animation like this lickety split. I love that. That's so much fun. That was the cue. It's like because I just had the still image of the little noisy cricket that I 3D printed, and I just wrote the prompt that I wanted an alien hand to reach in frame and then point and blast at the screen. But truth is, I meant for it to point towards this camera and go. Whoosh. But I kind of like what it did with the monitor on the laptop. Yeah, it was just fun, and it's just I mean, how cool is that that you can do that literally in like 30 seconds? If you've ever done visual effects of any kind or even just shot a video and be able to pull off a shot like that in 30 seconds, it was never be able to happen. Just no. But we're at that point where we can do that. And if you use it as I prefer, again, use the technology before the technology uses you. That's all there is to it. And who knows, there may be somebody out there who thinks that's real, but it's sort of real in that it looks like it is, but it's a cartoon, man. And that's the thing to remember when it comes to all the AI stuff. You're looking at cartoons, bro. I don't watch cartoons. I'm a grown. Shut up, dummy. You're watching cartoons over. You definitely for the past 20 years in every film that's come out of Hollywood. There's more augmentation in there. That I mean, come on. Finding a movie with practical effects is next to nothing. And again, we live in a world where I found a model of the noisy cricket. I clicked a couple pixels, and next thing you know, I got a noisy cricket. It doesn't actually blast anything though, but that's where the AI animation came in. Looks pretty convincing, huh? But anyway, again, we live in a fascinating time where the human imagination can be superpowered if you let it go, because it's already a superpower. Your imagination is indeed a superpower. I don't care what anybody says. As far as like the advanced tech and all this other nonsense, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the whole alien extraterrestrial thing, first off, show me something other than crappy video that does not, in any smell test, have a right to be presented as evidence. We're past that now. This is 4K video streaming out to the whole planet on a small laptop that's not super duper, on a Cox cable internet connection that's not like super duper fast. It's good, but it's not super duper fast. And again, don't tell me that all the best you can do is give me a fuzzy little black shadow that is allegedly moving as fast or faster than an F-15 fighter jet. Do better if that's going to be your convincing evidence of something. Because this is not going to work, especially if we've got a military budget that's in the billions and trillions of dollars. Walmart has these cameras available for $44, and you can get great, stunning 4K video that you could mount on an F-15. Call me crazy. Maybe I should be a part of the now defunct Doge group there at the White House to budget things. That was fun, wasn't it? But again, think about that. Frame. Here's the thought experiment I was going to go into. We're 6 away from the 9 o'clock hour, and so I don't want to go over. I'm having fun with this morning. But now, what if let's play the game? What if the alien threat was genuine and it's going to happen or it does happen? What would you do? What would you do? What would be the thing that you would do if ET shows up or Predator, which Alicia wants to see, which is nuts? I love my wife, but she's crazy. But anyway, or the xenomorph from Alien, or any of those other. I personally love. What about Chewbacca? Nobody wants to see Chewbacca show up. They want all this other stuff. They want, and like a Vulcan, like Mr. Spock. Um, I don't know, whatever. Say they showed up. What would you do? What impact would that actually have on your life and your perception of reality? Because obviously things would be a changing. But then again, we've got computers now where I can talk to you across the planet. So that's kind of alien, isn't it? For a certain point of view. Go a little Obi-Wan Kenobi there. But think about that. What would you do? How would it impact what you do? Now I'll run through the pillars of what I do with my life. Now, again, the best thing for me is I'm prepping you for that potentiality and using your imagination, but also helping you see through some of the narrative forming stuff that may not that you might be basing an opinion on through their alleged observations and experiences versus your own. Just saying. They're writing fiction as far as you know, because if you haven't experienced it, you're just listening to a fiction story. Just saying. Me personally, though, like I say, what's the three pillars of Jim? Well, one being the product, which is my book, right? Which this book is meant to help you tap into your imagination and dive back deeper into the meaning of certain things that fuels your imagination today and empowers you in ways that you may not have thought of before. And then the second pillar being, I need to adjust, I guess. But anyway, the second one being like when it comes to the one service that I provide with like creating evergreen content for folks and teaching it and consulting on it. Inside of that, again, we're still in the same thing where we're framing our own narratives. And I'm showing you how to do that in a manner to where we're finding the story points that have lasting impact. Okay. So let's say the aliens show up. Well, you have the opportunity in that to document what it was like before they showed up, right? And things along those lines. And then, of course, the project being the virtual stump to where I can, this is my way of doing something for the community at large and what I find to be a helpful way of informing and connecting the community on things that matter, like elections. But now, if the aliens showed up, would that still matter? I would hope so, because we would still want people representing us in those talks, right? So it's like I would like to be able to go over to the virtual stump page and then see all the people who are running for office and see. Totally not going to ask them that question, but maybe I should. But if the aliens invaded, what would their position be then? But again, I would still want to know that we have people who are worthy, dependable, and maybe or maybe not sane to address that type of world changing shift. That's how I deal with it. But what about you? Aliens show up. They actually show up. They roll in and they're like, hey, what's up, dude? But they're supposed to be like, well, they could either be very passive, but they wouldn't come all the way here just to pick a fight. Or it could be the other way. We came here to pick a fight. So it could go either way, right? I don't know. But either way it goes, that narrative is what it is. And I would be curious to hear what your take on that narrative. What would you do? I don't know. It's 2 minutes away from the 9 o'clock hour. It is now a balmy. Where are we at? Well, the S&P is like not doing anything. I don't care about that machine. You're supposed to be telling me the temperature. Last check, it was a balmy 39 degrees. Oh no, no, no. We're at 44. Really? I got to check another box on that. I must verify that information. And as always, though, remember when it comes to doing the weather and such and being informed when it gets really, really hairy and dicey, don't forget my buddy Brandon Ruley with Storm Track 360 because he does it when it matters most. 42 and sunny out there. I'm not sure about the sunny, but then again, I'm in a room with no windows. It keeps me safe from the alien invaders. Or it traps me. Damn. Either way, it's 42. It's a beautiful day. We're 1 minute away from the 9 o'clock hour. I do have a list of things that I've got to get back to work on, but I love having the coffee with you guys in the mornings, planting seeds in your head, and hopefully connecting you with parts of your imagination that you may have forgotten that you have, because life will do that to you if you're not careful. Well, I'm going to shake it loose as much as possible. Again, I've got my noisy cricket that I am ready in case the aliens show up. By golly, I'm going to go to town. Don't you worry. Get behind me, sister. I got your back. And we'll have some fun. Anyway, till tomorrow morning when we do it again. Have a great day, guys. And again, share the links for my book. Why? Because what else are you going to do? You're still recovering from all this coffee. You got a little shake going on. Makes it easier to do that. Hey, you know what? Let me put that in the comments too. I'm going to do that before I get out of here. It's right at 9 o'clock. Good Lord, Jim, you didn't shut up today. Nope, sure didn't. But let's go back over here, and I'm going to put a link to the book. Share it with all your friends. Share it with your enemies, because it might make them better people, and then they won't be your enemies anymore. So there's a link to the book. Share it if you would be so kind. I'd appreciate it. Physical copies would be awesome, but digital is just as well to plant the seeds, and then you'll want the physical copy. Because I made this book. It ain't about me. It really is about you. Good golly, I went into pitchman mode there, didn't I? It happens. Anyway, guys, have a great day. I hope to see you again in the morning, and we'll have some fun if I see you out on the streets. I got things to do, and you might catch me out there. But don't be rude. I do have work to do. Anyway, have a great one, guys. Till the morning.